this thing. Yeah. Like,
Oh, I see. If you leave presenter view,
what?
if you leave presenter view for a
Where do you
moment,
do it?
so if you click somewhere and then hit escape. And then let's see. So if you share your screen and share the desktop.
Let's see this one.
Yeah, the screen. Yep. Okay.
Okay. Now I can see this and I can.
And then if you go to more, down here, hide floating meeting controls. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
And then from current slide. Yeah, you can see it now without the interruption. Yeah. Okay. What should I share? Should I skip again?
Can you switch to Zoom? Can you toggle there?
Yeah.
No. Okay. All right. So I guess leave here.
Share.
Yeah. So try again.
Sure.
Select two.
Select two. Okay.
Yes.
Is this much better, right?
And then click on more.
But he can't because he doesn't.
Yeah, but now I cannot.
Then can you like take your cursor there? Sorry. If the cursor, yeah, the cursor is there. Okay, wait. I can see there. You see?
Oh, it is an extended screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the option here?
Where it says H.
Hide names and annotators. Hide video panel. Hide floating menu. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then taking this cursor back here, and it's yours.
Okay. Might be better. Okay, so why do we focus on idioms? That's a question that I cannot answer, except actually saying because I like them. But the current response that has some traction at ETS is that even when you have a reasonably good command of general English, if you don't have proficiency with idiomatic expressions, it can impede the communication. So this is obviously oriented towards people who are not native English speakers and like what at ETS is called EFLs, L2, stuff like that. Well, actually, might actually be also useful for native speakers because not everybody knows idioms well. But the argument for lack of competence is an argument that idioms should be taught, but why test them? Well, that's a good point because nobody actually tests for idioms. Like I was searching, if you know something, it would be interesting, but I was searching the internet very much. Like no serious company tests for idioms specifically as idioms. There are many quizzes, you can find quizzes on the web, but like you don't have actually tests for this. And so it was an interesting idea to develop specifically a test for knowledge of idiomatic expressions. And we'll see how it goes. But the interesting aspect, of course, for me, because I'm doing computational work, is whether we could actually do this automatically. And since I actually talked to test developers and we talked about like people who actually write tests, specifically TOEFL, they say, oh, idioms would be like a lot of work and we don't want to even touch it. So we were going to see how to do it. And in addition to testing, it can also be useful for practice. So this is where quizzes are often used. Okay, so this is the motivation. Now we are going to mention that, like, what is an idiom? And there is there's lack of agreement. Like there's a lot of various publications say different things. So there was research in linguistics, in applied linguistics, in psychology, in corpus linguistics, in computational linguistics. Everybody did something interesting about idioms. There was a lot of interesting psycholinguistic research in the 80s and 90s. People were measuring reaction times and stuff like that. It was very, very interesting. And recently, there was a lot of work in computational linguistics. I will mention a little bit about that. But of course, there are also dictionaries of idioms. So you can actually say, well, I don't know what the idiom is, but let's go to the dictionary and we'll decide. Well, that's not that easy because like there are many categories of things which are counted sometimes as idioms. For example, prepositional verbs are they idiomatic? Kind of, maybe. Are phrasal verbs, especially verb particle construction, idiomatic? Well, probably, especially that English is notorious for them. German has it, Dutch has it, but many other languages don't. So, and they do actually sometimes change the meaning of words. So yeah, maybe. Then are formulaic sequence idioms? Well, under certain definitions, certainly they are. So how do you do or have a good day is typical formulaic sequence. And some authors will say, yes, this is something which is idiomatic. You don't translate word for any language. So, and people often have to learn it by heart. So especially people in the community of language learning sometimes claim that these are idiomatic. And then what about proverbs? Well, proverbs are kind of, yeah, idiomatic because although they mean what they mean, but they have additional layer of meaning, which is typically what people want to convey when they use proverbs. So again, there is this tension of meaning. So they are also in a sense idiomatic or figurative. And many of these things actually appear in dictionaries of idioms. So if you just go consult a dictionary, you will find there whatever people wanted to put there. And it's not always right. So what we do in this project, and I was lucky enough because like I could define whatever I want. I decided I don't want these things in my project. And it's partially because I think that there is different treatment for these expressions, and also maybe we'll expand back to them later. So what we are looking for is expressions like spill the beans, dead end, bigger fish to fry, grow cold, mind numbing. So these are more typical idioms in English. And you can see that there's a variety of parts of speech. So some of them are nouns, some of them are adverbs, many of them are verb phrases. And unlike much of the research that was done, say, up until 2018, where typically in computational linguistics focus was only on specific part of speech. So there was a lot of research just on verb phrases, which are idioms. But currently, like people say, oh, no, we need to take them all. So we're trying to take them all. However, we only are working on multi-word expressions. And if you're interested, there is a very, very interesting class of single word idioms. Let's put them aside, but they actually exist. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to the actual work that we are doing. And what I want you to come out at the end of it is that if by the end of this presentation, you'll say, oh, this is totally trivial, it's so simple. Then if you think so, that I have achieved my goal. Because basically what I think is that I came up with the idea that this can be done extremely simple. And the only merit of this thing was to come up with something which is very simple. But if few people like I talk to say, well, how do you do automatic item generation for idioms? I don't know. After I explain, oh, this is so simple. So let's see how simple it is. First of all, what do we want? So we want to generate multiple choice items which can be presented on a test to people. And I'm outlining 4 types of items, which are the basic things that people in test development communities say, like, this is our bread and butter, so this is standard thing. So type 1. Type 1 are idioms like spill the beans, and you're asking the people, well, what does it mean? And it can mean reveal secrets, spoil food, lose money, or recollect memories. And if you know what it means, then obviously number 1 is the correct answer. The number 2 is a mirror image of this. So instead of presenting the idiom, I'm presenting its meaning. So I say, having similar attitudes, this is the meaning. And I'm asking, well, which one of the following expression has this meaning? So be on the same page, come through the roof, come clean, or have nothing to lose. And it's be on the same page in this case. And if you see that you don't actually agree with it, there's a lot of flexibility. There are some idioms have multiple meanings, etc. So 1 and 2 are basically mirror images of each other. And what you can see in types 3 and 4, they are similar, but whereas in 1 and 2, I present just the dictionary stuff, in 3 and 4, I also provide some context. And that may, in some cases, people may say this is more authentic, it's more conducive to language learning, or maybe tests people in more interactive situations. So it's a legitimate issue, but basically what's saying we want to be able to generate these kind of stuff. And now the most important thing is that we want to be able to generate them fully automatically. Okay, so let's go. Let's look at the contextual stuff. Acontextual stuff. So for these things, what do we need? Well, we need idiomatic expressions. Then we need the definitions or paraphrases or meaning equivalents of their meaning so they can be used in testing. And then we can do some distractors. We need some other phrases which will distract the people from the correct path. Now, if we look at this from this perspective, then actually automatic item generation is just a smarter combination of components. That's what it, like, this is one way that I thought about it that struck me like, this is very simple. This is how you can do this in a simple way. And it's modular. I'm not saying there's no other way to do it. People probably can do it in different ways, but once you see it, you will see that maybe there is a merit for this approach. So, well, this is where we came to collecting the idioms. So we collected about 2,000 English idioms from Wiktionary. Actually, Wiktionary has more. On some accounts, it has somewhere between 8 to 18,000, depending on what you count it is. And Wiktionary actually is good because it explicitly marks them there. Also, I wanted to share with you something. So yeah, Wiktionary is also free. You don't have to worry about copyright, and it has pretty comprehensive coverage. And I tried to, like, if you go to Wiktionary and you want to do it, it's actually a lot of manual work. Now, if you want to download all of it and get it automatically, one way is to do it is to get their dump, which is very difficult to parse, or you could do it in RDF format. There is a NLP department in Grenoble which provides what they call Dibinary, and which is a Wikipedia and Wiktionary in RDF format. I tried it. It was very cool until I found it's total mess. Like, it's very difficult to process. It's easier to do it by hand. So, but yeah, they probably are going to, because they present a lot of stuff about linguistic connected data, etc. But like when I tried it, it was a mess. Oh, so back to dictionary. So this is a screenshot from Wiktionary. It's actually a bit edited, but this is actually how it looks like. And this is the idiom on the same page. And you can see that it has two senses, or at least they always mention the literal sense, but the idiomatic sense has a very long definition. In broad agreeing or sharing a common general understanding or knowledge, even with some correction in parentheses, etc. They also sometimes have examples of use. So you see that there's example of use. Now, one of the things that, and I collected these things for all of the 2,000 idioms, but one of the things that immediately was striking is that these definitions are too long. Like, you cannot use this in actual items. This is awkward. And this is not something that people would appreciate, like this fact that it's long, except that when you're actually working for a testing company, you know this by heart. Yeah, there is a no-go here. One thing that we needed to do is to shorten them, rewrite them to make them rather compact. And it's currently I'll mention about it. And the other thing that we need to do is to filter them. So about, I don't know, 40 or 60% of idioms that you collect, they're actually no-go because they're vulgar, they're taboo topics, they're insensitive, they're about words that I still remember this joke when I was in elementary school. The joke was that teacher comes into class and said, okay, kids, we are going to repeat all the words that you are not allowed to say. So yeah, this goes a lot with idioms. A lot of them are about stuff that cannot be said in polite company, especially by a testing company who cares about their image. So all these have to be cleaned. Also, there are some idioms which are regional or non-use English. There are Australian idioms, there are Irish idioms, which like not quite for us. And also some dated expressions. So all of that was clean. And so we currently have 570 curated idioms, and more are coming soon. And the 2,000 was just the first batch because we also have a much larger collection. But you can see that there is this manual stage of cleaning stuff, and could be in principle automated, but that would be a project on itself. So if we go into that project, we won't get AIG in 10 years. So certain shortcuts have to be taken. So the shortcut was to do it manually. Okay, now about the structure of multiple choice items. I think that you probably all know this, but it's just a reminder. So an item, which you can see here is in blue, it has the following components. It has a stem, which is where we present material and ask the question. Then it has the key, which is the correct answer. It has distractors, which are the wrong answers. So how do we generate an idiom type item of type 1? Well, we select an idiom and we take its definition because it's already there somewhere in our knowledge base that we just defined. And we put the idiom in the stem, we put the literal rephrase, the meaning as the key, and then we have to just select 3 distractors and we're done. And it looks easy. Now, how do we get distractors of type 1? Well, if you look actually at the distractors of type 1, they're all literal phrases. So we need literal phrases. Well, at least for now. And they need to be relatively short, and they need to fit the general structure of the item, and they must not stand out. So in the jargon of test developers, not stand out is a very, very complex thing because many things can stand out for examinee when it comes to a test. It can be the length of responses, it can be certain other aspects. For example, if you do vocabulary items, then having common prefixes and suffixes with the key might skew your attention there. There's a lot of science in this and a lot of, actually not science, but that's test developers' knowledge. So what does it mean stand out is a very hot topic. And in addition to this, they have to be stylistically similar to correct answers. So it cannot be something like, yesterday I ate ice cream. It doesn't go there. First of all, it's a full phrase, but even if it was something like, I'm still struggling what does mean stylistically similar, but I will make a note about this just in a moment. So where then can we get type 1 distractors? So one way is to use the literal definitions of other idioms, because like we just collected them, they are literal, all of these definitions, but it is a dispreferred approach because we don't have many of them and it reduces item interoperability. What does that mean? Well, if an idiom's definition is going to appear as a key in one item and as a distractor of another, that these 2 items can be used together because it's the same expression appearing in different items in different roles. And because items typically, even if you're doing a quiz on the web, you get a set of items. You don't want to same phrase repeat again and again and again. So it's not very good to use this. So the other way is just to make a collection, just brute force, make a collection of literal phrases which can be used as potential distractors and be a resource. And the interesting thing about this is that if you do have a large set of such phrases, you can generate many items because you can use the same idiom, but just use different literal expressions as distractors. So it allows you to generate many different items. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say, that for this project, just for the proof of concept, we compiled the literal phrase collection manually. But it is going to be a very interesting additional project to automate this and generate like thousands and thousands of literal expressions. The computational challenge there is going to be to match them stylistically to the same kinds of expression that we have here. And we have a lot of styles because we have noun phrases, verb phrases, we have verb phrases with direct object, without direct object. We have a lot of stuff. It's going to be interesting. And this is also the point where we know the modularity because we have the AIG system which uses this as a resource. And so the resource can be developed independently of the AIG system. You can just sit down and say, for the next 3 months, we're going to develop a project which generates literal expressions using whatever, like ChatGPT, BERT, or 1,000 people in Kenya. They're not paid well. Okay, so one interesting constraint is that the distractors and the core item, and yeah, I should probably go back and mention this thing because I just skimmed over it. You see that I call something an item core. So the idiom and its literal rephrase, when they are used as a stem and the key, they are called, I call them item core. That's terminology I invented. So pretty useful because it allows me to talk about stuff. So the item core has a specific part of speech, or MPOS is major part of speech. So we're talking about noun, verb, etc. Not pen tree bank tags, but actually just major part of speech. And they have to be, all the expressions have to be of the same part of speech. You can see here an example. I tried to make here a bad item, which is kind of So spill the beans is a verb phrase and reveal secrets is a verb phrase, but a serious problem is a noun, and faster than expected is an adverb, and unpleasant situation is also noun. So this stand out. This is not a good item. Definitely test developers at ETS would tell me, go away. We're not going to take this. Actually, I think in some situations it actually can be used because, for example, you can ask different questions. You can say which of the following phrases is most semantically closest to the spill the beans, and then you can insert different things. But given the current state of affairs we are playing, it's very safe, and we are doing it with same part of speech. So this is a requirement which in the future might be relaxed. And yeah, we mark all of these things in the resources, so the algorithm doesn't have to do anything about it, just have to match whatever the field is in the resources. Again, very much towards modularity. Now, how do we generate items of type 2? Well, again, we select an item core, which is the idiom and its definition, but then we assign them to different places. So we put the idiom in the key and we put the literal phrase in the stem. And we need distractors, but this time distractors are just other idioms because we're testing idiomatic knowledge. So when we are asking what a certain literal expressions like having a similar attitudes, what it can be expressed as, you want to put there several different idioms and ask which one it bears this meaning. So you need to select idioms. Well, we have a dictionary of idioms, so it's kind of easy. And we match them by part of speech, and here they go, like simple, easy, modular. Now we do something additional. We do vectorization. So in order to select better distractors for item, and also to avoid potential multi-keying, and that basically double keying or multi-keying means that more than one option in the set is potentially correct answer. You don't want that in an item, except for very sophisticated items which say like select all of the above, but we are not talking about it. So we are talking about simple items where only one answer is correct. So we want to prevent multi-keying, and we want to check the semantic similarity between distractor and the core item. So we vectorize each expression separately. So we vectorize the idiom itself, we vectorize the meaning or the definition or the description, and we vectorize each distractor as well. And I use sentence BERT, which was published by Remers and Gurevich, 2019, very, very good system as vectorizer. And the reason that I'm using that is that because natural BERT embeddings are not very good for similarity. These people they post-train the systems specifically for the task of textual similarity, so it works rather well. And so what do we seek? So for type 1 items, we seek that the literal distractors should be similar to item definition with up to 0.65. If they are higher than that, they are becoming double keyed. It's not set in stone. I will show you some cases where it doesn't work well. And for type 2 items, we seek idiom phrase distractors whose similarity to the definition is up to 65. And so we are basically comparing the similarity of the literal strings, because the similarity of the idiom, like you don't know, like if you take something like spill the beans, you can vectorize it, but what does it mean? It's still an open question. It's a very good point because I'm still struggling with how can I use it? I think I can use it, but at least for now, for the item generation, vectorizing the meanings is very good. And the meanings are literal by selection, so there's no problem with that. We also require that distractors should not be semantically too similar to each other. So that's, again, because it would be something outstanding in the item. So it's post consideration of the test. And yes, in the future, we'll consider similarity score for difficulty estimation. We know perfectly that it works in vocabulary items, but I have no clue yet how it works in idioms, so it's something to do in the future. Next. Am I going too fast? Questions? No. I'll show you. I'll show you. It's kind of, I set the threshold about like upon some experimentation, but it's actually not perfect. I still need to refine it. Okay, so what I want to show here, this is my pride. So we are actually a functional system. It actually does this. These items which you see here are fully automatically generated from scratch. Like you press a button, it just shoots out these things. It can generate several thousands of items per minute. So the only restriction is how much you have in resources. And by the way, I talked about vectorization. Vectorization done offline because like you can just vectorize them once, store them with the dictionaries, with everything. So the automatic generation is actually really just a recombiner. That's all. But you need to provide all of the resources first, and so that's where the development is modular and takes time. So these are the real examples, and you can see here, like at least at first expression, they are not bad. There are certain things which are not quite good about them. So, for example, this one on the left, top one on the left, option number 3 is extremely long, and it's not, and 4 is much shorter. So they kind of stand out. On the other hand, the others are kind of more balanced for length, but I'm not sure how much should I worry about length because, like, it cannot, certain definitions cannot be trimmed more because then they become nonsense. So we'll see about it, but yeah. So this is the result of fully automatic. Okay, so we did evaluation. So this is not a rigorous evaluation where you can make charts, etc. It was done just for the sake of seeing are we on the correct path or not. So here's what we got. We automatically generated 100 items, 50 of type 1 and 50 of type 2, and we asked ETS test developers to rate each one of them on a 3-point scale. So if they give us 3, the item is okay. If they give 2, is slight issues, and if they give 1, there's problems there. And the average score for all items was 2.465, which says, wow, we're on the correct path. Great. Well, it's not bad. But actually, the best part was that the evaluators gave me notes about some insights, what was wrong and what was right. And this is very, very early evaluation. By the way, the other thing about this evaluation is that they actually did not have a protocol for evaluation because nobody had done this before. So part of this exercise was also to develop a protocol. And after this study ran, I started understanding much better how wrong I was and that I need to design a much better protocol for evaluation. So when we go into next state of evaluation, we will actually have a much better protocol. So that's about evaluation. So let's see some of the stuff that came up in the evaluation. So here is a case where we have the top item. Which of the following expressions means force someone to an action against their will? So the correct answer is twist someone's arm, but force someone's hand is actually the same thing. There are 2 idioms which mean closely the same thing. And this actually was running before I imposed the threshold for similarity. And I needed to adjust the threshold in order to get it. So it was kind of, so you see the problem. Like the only reason that this is on this slide is to show you the problems. Like I'm very proud of the good stuff, but I wanted to show you the bad stuff. Also, here is a case of expression raise eyebrow, and the correct meaning is cause means disapproval, mild disapproval, and one of the annotators say no, it means something totally different. And the person was correct. It's just that this idiom has 2 meanings, and he was probably aware of one meaning but not of the other. That's a problem in evaluation. It's a problem in many cases. Like. And it's not, I don't have like full solution for this. We need to think about what to do about it. Another case is here, the last one. So which of the following expressions means and repeating bad behavior? That's a bad phrase. I don't know how I didn't filter it when I was compiling the literal expressions, but there it is. And like people who evaluate it say the bad phrase, like very awkward. So yeah, what we had actually is that when I checked it, in the list of literal expressions, it stands with 2. So there's 2 and repeating bad behavior, which is also awkward. But what happens is that the software that produces items strips the 2 particle, so it ends up without. And so maybe I shouldn't do that. But yeah, what this alludes to is that there are certain lexical adjustments that are done during generation, which sometimes can produce certain things which are a bit awkward, but they are like really small things. Okay. Some other things here. Yeah, the expression "drink from a fire hose" means be overwhelmed with large amount of burden. And then one of the notions was that it's awkward phrasing. So this is a phrasing. This is a paraphrase of the idiom. It's taken directly from dictionary and shortened, and it's kind of not very good. Also, the second option is overlong, and then one of the other test developers says, well, clean dishes or laundry is not appealing distractor. It's obviously not going to help. So when I checked why this work is, this example was generated without the use of semantic similarity. Or basically, semantic similarity says anything up to 0.65. So this one probably was somewhere in the 0.01. So one of the things that comes, like, I could actually restrict the range of semantic similarity, so things are not too similar, but also not too different. That would make like expressions which are, select expressions which are actually quite difficult or quite attractive distractors for people. Another case here is that for expression change of heart, you can see that the definition is more detailed than anything else. So basically, a test taker could choose this one just because it's much more detailed. It provides much more information, also stands out. Another thing that this demonstrates is that sometimes the definitions of idioms are disjunctive. They have or inside it. And it's, I haven't yet decided whether it's a good thing or bad thing. I tend to think it's a bad thing because it's sometimes trying to express various nuances of an idiom, and it provides too much information. It makes the item awkward, and also the vectorization becomes awkward because the pair tries to combine different meanings, and you get kind of awkward stuff. So it requires some thought. Another issue that comes out, and I promised some issues, general issues for idioms. So here's one. Look at the item, the last item. Which of the following expressions means closely resembling? And well, it's dead ringer. And somebody told me that it's not an NP, although it should be, but look at the last distractor. It's also an idiom, fat chance. And the interesting thing about fat chance that if we made an item about fat chance and would say like something like fat chance means blah blah, and its definition is also chance. And the problem with this idiom is that it's a semi-opaque idiom. So fully opaque idioms are idioms in which none of the words in the idiom has any relation to the meaning, like famous kick the bucket. Nothing in kick the bucket relates to die. But there are many, many idioms which are semi-opaque in the sense that one of the words there is non-idiomatic and the others are. And actually, I ran some study actually with people here. So some of you may have annotated idioms which, when you probably ask which words in the following idiom are taken figuratively, which no. That study is complementary to this work. But when we are doing automatic item generation, if you take an item which is, so if this was a focus of the item, and the word chance appears both in the stem and in the correct answer, it's obviously a clue which gives away everything. And it's going to be a bit difficult to generate items which have this relation where one of the words is literal in the idiom. So these are some of the challenges which we have not fully overcome yet. Okay, we can make a very short pause. Oh, time. Oh, so how do we do contextual items? So this is just a reminder what contextual items are. This is a repeat of the slide you saw before. So you see the two contextual item slides. So what do we need for item of type 3? So you have an example there. An item of type 3, it says, I will read the example well. Baffled, she listened to Jim for several minutes until finally the penny dropped. And the underlined expression, which is the penny dropped, what does it mean? And the options are she ran away, she dropped a coin, she suddenly understood, and she became upset. Well, we need idioms in context. We need these kind of phrases where idioms are. And we need a way to generate items from this snippet. So the first question, how do we get a good supply of idioms in context? So one way to do it is, which actually didn't exist a few years ago, is to use data sets of idioms in context, which are currently available. There are several such data sets. They're called PIs. In complementary to PETs, they are PIs. They are potential idiomatic expressions, but they're actually annotated in context. I've checked some of the repositories and don't always agree with their annotation, but they're there and they're pretty good. So that can be used. And it can be used for development work because here it is already there. We can just use it as a resource. But in the general case, we need to be able to obtain much more. And obviously we cannot use published materials for commercial products or anything. So we need something else. So what is this something else? Well, the idea is very simple. You just go take yourself an idiom detection system, run it on a large corpus, and here you have it, idioms in context. It's not that simple. The reason it's not that simple is that state-of-the-art system by Zheng and Pat, published a year ago. They have a BERT-based model, and there's promising accuracy, about 60, 70%. I tested them on not on their data, but on my own data. It was again 70%, so it's kind of okay. But if you want the item generation system to work perfectly, you need to clean these extra 30%. That's manual effort. So we're not there yet. We're also trying something which is more sophisticated. So this system basically is supposed to run on free text and just detect stuff. It detects it by checking the flow of attention inside BERT. We tried something several years ago. That's our paper, where we do pattern matching. And we use a dictionary. So instead of just doing like BERT does on everything, we had a dictionary of idioms, but we did pattern matching to match them in context. It's very complicated stuff because many idioms actually allow stuff interfering inside them and they change by inflection and other things. So we want to use this system as detector of candidates and then use this system to verify the candidates that we detect with this one. And I think that we will get much better precision. So this is a project that is currently coming. We are not there yet, but it's coming. I hope to run it in the summer. Actually, even looking for an intern to run it, but we'll see if we get one. Okay, so that's the idea. How do you get these things? But then the other question is, okay, suppose you get a collection of idiom context. How do you generate items? Well, actually, it's very simple. The same way you do it with items type 1. It just struck me one day is how simple it is. I was like totally speechless. Like it's actually, you don't need to code anything. You already have all your code there, except a couple of things. So if you take the idiom in context and match it to the idiom in your dictionary, so you automatically immediately know it's part of speech and everything, you can just actually insert it inside. So we don't even have to run parsers or taggers on stuff. So here are examples. So this is text taken from White Fang by Jack London. Anybody remembers this author? And text from Project Gutenberg. So this is actually automatically generated contextual items. And yeah, it actually works. So what we have is actually, we have these texts with idiom annotation. The idiom was automatically found by the previous, like the kind of stuff that we did previously. I ran the pattern matching algorithm on this story. It automatically annotated all the idioms, and because the pattern matching knows the identities of idioms, I could match them against the dictionary. And then the only thing I just had to reformat it in a tab separated file. There you go. This is really automatically generated. Actually, simple. Yeah, the last part. Yeah, things that need to be resolved with generation of type 3 items. So one question is, how much context do you need to be supplied for a good item? So you can see here, and this is the context that's supplied here is a full sentence. I extract the full sentence in which the idiom appears. It's not always obvious that you need, like you could think that the full sentence is a good unit, but sometimes the sentence can be too long and sometimes can be too short. So you sometimes want to extract more. So the question is, what do you want? A few sentences, a paragraph? It's an open question. I totally don't know it. And one of the other things is that if I extract not enough context, the item becomes difficult. But if I want to use this as a didactic item, so for practice for people, I probably want to extract enough context so people can understand the use of the idioms in context. So probably this means that for different purposes, you need to select how much context you are providing. That's an interesting thing because it's unlike the dictionary items. This allows you to do some interesting manipulations on this stuff. Also, do I need to adjust the extractors to the inflection? So you can see here, here that, well, hand in glove is kind of not inflected and heartbreaking also not, but draw the line here appears to be in infinitive, but if it was given in inflected form, do I want to inflect all of these or not? We actually can, we have tools to do it, but it's an open question if we want to do it or not for item generation. So, or maybe we keep canonical forms. Also, another question is, do we want the destructors to fit the syntactic space of the idiom in the question? Because, and this is important because test developers often say, if the destructors don't fit instead of the original words, it stands out. So they can say, oh, this destructor doesn't fit, etc. But it would be not very easy always to be able to do it, especially for verb phrases and stuff like that. Or so it's an open question if I actually want to do this. So the current simple system doesn't fit it inside, and it just says, here are your destructors. Okay, this is the toughest one, and it hasn't been solved yet, but what I present to you is like the path to solution. So items of type 4, they look like this. His explanation for discrepancies in the report was rejected as totally implausible. One might say that explanation does not hold water. And there are other things. Now, if you look at this carefully, say, wait a minute, the stem doesn't have any idioms. There are no idioms here. Yeah, the idioms are in the options, but not in the stem. So, given the context, we need to find an idiom that would fit this sentence, and we don't know how to do it. Even worse than that, in order to find sentences like this, what do? In the item type 3, we ran some idiom detection algorithm, which brought us the sentences with the idioms. But what do we run here? We cannot run an idiom detection algorithm because we don't even have idioms. So here's the solution. We have definitions. So we can run and find sentences which include the definitions of our idioms, or the phrases which express something similar. So in the simplistic case, we can run a pattern matching on lexical patterns. In the more advanced case, we can run search for sentences which have cosine similarity, which might be. So that would be a supplier of potential sentences, but probably we'll need to do some more stuff. Otherwise, we get a lot of junk. So this is the one on which I'm working right now. That's all. I hope now you see it's extremely simple. Number 4. Sorry. Sorry, I lost this. I stopped sharing. Yeah, I need to share it again. Which one? I don't see which one to use. Let's see this one. Let's do it again. I'm going to. No. Okay, you can see the slideshow. Now I go back to Zoom. And I don't see here what I should share. I totally don't. I see the screen and this one. So just,
You might have to leave presenter mode. PowerPoint.
okay. I'm not in presenter mode.
Oh, you're not?
I don't know. No, I am. Let me close this. Okay, we don't have PowerPoint. Let's try this one. Okay. Now we go back to Zoom meeting and we say share. And yes, I would say share. Well, yeah, that's fine. Now we want to go to the back of, where is our back? This one. Well, this is number 4, right? This one is a difficult one. In what sense it's difficult? It's difficult to produce it. The item is not that difficult. Like, yeah, it's difficult to produce, especially that I need to find sentences like this without having any idioms in them. It's tricky. It's like but it's interesting. I was at this at your meeting too, and like you were looking for stuff by meaning, but without having the actual meaning. So I was asking you if you have this PETs defined lexically or not, because the solution here is that you can actually look for something which has close meaning and then try to extract it. It's not that simple, because if you vectorize the full sentence, it doesn't give you the meaning of the actual definition, because the definition is part of the sentence. Also, I want to show you something also tricky here. Yeah. Let's take this one. So this is number 3. If you look at number 4 here, his explanation for discrepancies in the report was rejected as totally implausible. Look at the phrasing. One may say that the explanation does not hold water, but how do you know that explanation is the key part in that about which you should ask something? If the algorithm needs to do it automatically, it doesn't know this exactly how to do it. So this is actually difficult, and this is something I will need to solve. In type 3, which is the mirror image of it, I know where the idiom is, so I know how to structure this. So algorithm just runs it. It's very simple. But in that one, you need to do, in addition to being able to match the phrase, you also need to see if and remember that in this case, the meaning is totally implausible. That's the correspondent to water. The role of the explanation here is tricky. You need to know this. And so that's why number 4 is definitely the most difficult one, but obviously the most interesting one, because like everything else is easy. So yeah, I'm working on this one, and we'll probably solve it at some point. Yeah, I think that this one will actually require some parsing, etc. I was able to do everything else without parsing, without anything. It was like, when I started this project, I was thinking about what resources I needed. As I went on and on, I said, oh, I don't need this, and I don't need, and I don't need this. And I was like, I don't need almost anything. It's so simple. Number 4 is tough.
So, it seems to me some idioms are totally context bound. Without context, it would be literal, right?
Not exactly. You can see here, like, there are. Let me go back on this. This is very, very interesting. It actually opens a very interesting stuff. We discussed this with my colleague Beata when we did our work in 2018. There are idioms which are so entrenched that you don't even think about their literal meaning. And so they are, so think about this one, pay attention. Pay attention is an idiom. But if you are, especially for native English speakers, like, there's no other way to say it, you just pay attention. If you translate to other languages, those of you who know other languages, it's totally awkward, like, no go, no, it's an idiom. But it's so entrenched that people don't. So basically, pay attention in any context will be obvious, easy, and it will be always idiomatic. There is no way you can actually pay attention. Maybe in science fiction novel, you can pay something with attention, but other idioms, like spill the beans, on the other hand, can be literal. And this is exactly what people did in the 1980s and 90s when they did psycholinguistic experiments on this, because they presented this in literal context, in idiomatic context, to measured whether the time of reaction is different. And by the way, the typical finding was that for idioms which are well known, like spill the beans, if it appears in the literal meaning, it's very quick. If it appears in context which facilitates the idiomatic meaning, it's almost the same reaction time. So there was like the main finding in psycholinguistics was that reaction times don't distinguish them, at least for native speakers. For non-native speakers, different story. Not much work actually was done on native speakers, and it was replicated in other languages. I know that Cristina Tabossi worked on Italian and same findings. So this is about like 20 years ago. Not much psycholinguistic work is done on this today, but the point is that yes, there are some idioms which will, in almost any context, will be idiomatic, like pay attention. There are some idioms which can switch between idiomatic, non-idiomatic reading. And also the pay attention is also a good one, because attention is actually not idiomatic, it's straightforward, it's attention. It's the word pay that plays this role. And as I said, semi-transparent expressions. There was extremely good article about this by two linguists in 1994. I think it was Vazov and Nürnberg. It still strikes me as one of the most relevant articles until today, although there is some development since there are some linguists which try to argue against them. But they were the first one who introduced the non-opacity of these things. And as I found while doing this kind of exercise, it actually has implications for item generation, because the stuff is non-opaque, it's kind of problematic. So luckily, we can work around it by, for example, at least for now, not including such items, because they make items too obvious, etc.
Let me
yeah.
finish my comment. What I really want to say, some idioms are obvious non-literal. For example, change of heart, right? Also many for conditions. So they don't require too much complexity. But many other idioms are totally complex. Yeah. Right? I said, let's put the idea. Okay. So my point here, we have collected about 20 or 2,000 idioms, right? Maybe in the future we can collect 20,000. So it would be very messy, right? And do you think it's necessary to categorize idioms into different types?
Yes.
And each type has its own non-literal or idiomatic features.
I don't know about features. It's not because I oppose them. It's very tricky what we define as features. But first of all, the general answer is yes. Classifying idioms is very interesting. It's probably going to be interesting and useful, even for this endeavor. So just to mention, when I did web searches and I looked at quizzes and various aids for language learners, which especially for non-native language learners, many resources classify idioms by semantic domains. So idioms about animals, idioms about workplace, etc. You can feel this, and it's quite interesting because first of all, we can replicate that by just clustering over vectorization of idioms. We can do it, and it could be a nice addition, like into imagine some kind of system which produces items for practice, and you say, let's practice idioms about animals, and then it just spits you stuff. About the meaning dependency of idioms on the context. So you need to add, in addition to the meaning dependence of idiom of the context, also the factor in the student. So if change of heart, we know what it means. But if you are a non-English speaking student and you don't know this expression, like you have no clue. So in this case, I could put here a change of heart means, put the correct one and incorrect ones. And then if you know it, you can choose the right one. If you don't know it, like whatever. And this is the exercise I do for myself if I want to present myself in this situation. Exchange the idiom, take the idiom as it is and put all the distractors in some foreign script that you don't know. If you, like for me, I don't know Chinese, so I could put all them in Chinese script. That's how it looks for a person who doesn't understand this. Doesn't know, like whatever. So looking at this as a native speaker or as an advanced English speaker is totally different from the perspective of looking at it as the same stuff can happen also in context. Now, if you are trying to make it a didactic item, and this is what we often do, not only with idioms, we have, for example, vocabulary items. And vocabulary item basically, if anybody here seen TOEFL, TOEFL has similar cases. So TOEFL could give you, instead of this one, a whole passage. And then they highlight a word that says, this word in context means, they give 4 options. Now, if you know the meaning of this word, then you can select the correct option. And these are just single words in TOEFL. If you don't know, like you are in trouble, you can try and guess it from the context. Now, if this was a didactic item, you want to let people learn the meaning of the word by showing how it operates in context, then you want to be not very difficult, etc. So you might want to have a semantic connection between the context and the word. Same thing with idiom. If I want to make it a didactic item, I would provide here enough context so people can understand what it actually means. And then in that case, it's okay to use even an idiom like change of heart, because you want, if a person knows it, then it can support their understanding. If it doesn't know, they can see the contextual use, maybe it facilitates their meaning. But even if you use like something to spill the beans, it's the same. So the problem here is not, the computational problem is whether idiom has multiple meanings or not, but the problem for the test taker or the learner is slightly different. The problem for them is that how do I learn the use of a specific phrase, which, and it happened to me because English is not my first language, and even Hebrew is not my first language. When I learned these languages, let me just, it's the same with euphemism, but even in your native language, which you speak as your first language, I remember experiencing a situation when I was reading a poem. I was like 10 years old. I was reading a poem, and there was a figurative expression which I couldn't understand. And it was my first language, so there was no problem for L2, whatever. And I couldn't understand it. I understood it in the wrong way, and it didn't make any sense in that context. And I was baffled by, I cannot understand this piece of reading because like it's a problem. And this is often what I found when I was looking at expressions in other languages. When reading something in a language, especially if you're reading in a language which you don't very well know, you can come to a position when you take an expression and you see that if you take it literally, it doesn't make sense. But if you don't know what is the idiomatic meaning, you are stuck because you don't know how to interpret it. That's where the situation is, that you might detect through the literal path that it doesn't make sense to interpret literally, but then you're stuck because you don't know how to correctly interpret it. And that's when the testing and the didactic goes, that we're trying to supply you material, we will teach you how to do it. So yeah, and like there is, if you know, both in native reading, like in English, and also for L2 acquisition, there are theories about saying that in order to facilitate language acquisition, people just need to read much, much more. There's a whole theory, it was especially influential in educational cases, and I just let people read more. Well, in some cases, especially with idioms, letting them read more is not a solution, because they might come to situations where you just stuck. You see it doesn't fit, but you don't know what it is. So as you can see, there is a lot of educational and linguistic stuff going together. Sometimes the arguments that I'm making, I gotta cross various things, both educational and linguistic, because if you look at things linguistically, it looks slightly different. If you look at it from educational perspective, suddenly things look different. And we don't always have solutions. What we always have is that we see the problem.
And then one might say that explanation, and then we have multiple. What's the difference between this task and the task of rewriting?
So from educational perspective, so that as a psychologist, it's simple. It's difference between perceptive and productive. You can always read an option on a test, but being able to produce something like a rewrite is not, you think it's simple, but it's not. The rewrite is typically more difficult, not only from a cognitive perspective, in the sense that you have to produce something and people have difficulty with that, but also it's also difficult emotionally, because for a student on a test to be able to write something is also emotionally taxing. Unlike perception, like choose one of these options. That's why the multiple choice test was like, it was invented like many years ago. It was very well known that multiple choice tests are very easy to students to take. You just need to scratch, but it's also emotionally, because you don't need to produce anything. And only recently people discovered that when a task on a test is to produce something, it's taxing emotionally. You're afraid. And it actually came from the research in psychology about test anxiety and stuff like that. So yeah, it's also more difficult to produce stuff, even if it's such a simple thing as please rewrite the sentence.
I tried to show the picture, and I put the sentence, rewrite the sentence, the right message. So it's adjusted fish. So it's adjusted.
Yeah, it's yeah. One of the things I have to caution, ChatGPT is extremely popular today. This is not for ChatGPT. And actually, I think ChatGPT could solve most of this stuff easily. I think you can solve most of this easily with BERT. We did some exercises years ago when we tried to estimate difficulty of items by how difficult it is for an algorithm to solve it. Well, today we have systems which like they're no match for mere human, like they can solve it. So here is another problem, which I like. Let me go back. Where was this? No, I'm going in the wrong direction. Yeah, you see this one with the close meaning. So the twist summer rounds and for summer hands, these are obviously like totally synonymous. Even by the way, not only they are synonymous in their meaning, but also in their quasi-literal interpretation. They are close, but there are some cases which could be like fishy in the sense that not true, but is fishy the same as doesn't hold water? There are nuances of interpretation. And that's what I found in evaluation. The test developers, who are people who very much care about nuances, started saying like some people had different nuances from others. So whether fishy is actually equivalent or not will depend on test developer. And that's tricky because I wanted a system which everybody would be happy then, but I came out with a system where still different people might be not quite happy with the results. And the answer for that, I don't know what to do about it. But it might be actually taken as a positive thing, because if you want to go to advanced language learning, you can present students with like doesn't hold water and fishy and tell them, oh, these actually are kind of quasi-synonyms. People can learn from this. So it's for advanced people. It's yeah. And so I will give you another piece. So there is type 5, which is not on this one. And type 5 is exactly this kind of item. Instead of giving an idiom and something else, I can give people an idiom, give 4 others, say which of the following 4 idioms is closest in meaning to that one given in the stem. So, for example, giving an idiom doesn't hold water, which one of the following is the closest, and have fishy one of the options. And that's the correct answer. So this one, it's not here on this one, but that's a new item type. So basically, I was talking about 4 item types. There are more possible from this. So this is a project which I start seeing. On one hand, I start seeing the end. On the other hand, I start seeing there's no end. There's always new stuff.
So the difficult part from our perspective, how do you create appealing structures?
Yeah, appealing the stuff. Yeah.
So such structures must be psychologically plausible. Okay, as non-literal.
Well, they can be literal if the item type 1, they are, type. So in this case, they are literal. But yeah, they need to be appealing. So one case of non-appealing, I was talking about major part of speech where things like obviously stand out. So in test industry, it's well known probably to you also that if you go to a test and you don't know which answer is correct, you start eliminating. So you look which options are totally like implausible, you eliminate them. You can actually get a good score by just doing that. So in order to get a good item, you need that all the distractors should be plausible in that case. So for non-contextual distractors like these definitional distractors, the only way I can match it is that I can play with the structure of the sentence. For example, if there are verb phrases, they should all have direct object, otherwise something stands out. I don't like this one is actually one good one because they all have direct objects. Also, I can play on the semantic similarity between them and make them more matching. So if they are within a small range in the, cosine goes between 1 and -1, but 0 is basically typically the lowest one. So if you say that the range of possible values should be lower, you can generate actually more appealing distractors in the sense that they will make more people choose the wrong answer. So that's the definition of appealing distractors. There's also in test development something which is called the differential item function, when one of the distractors is totally unappealing. Like the others might be chosen, but like number 4 is never chosen. Everybody sees that it's the wrong thing to do. People typically don't like this on tests. Again, this is more adjusting this kind of system to requirements of test development. So, and I have to live with it every day because we're a testing company. So requirements for testing is, but you can see how many linguistic issues and psychological issues creep into, like you said, for example, they creep all the time because this stuff is done for people and people are complex. Yeah, and one final word, like if you are interested in this, like shoot me an email, we can talk about it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's fine. Sorry for taking you so much. I was.
Simulations are very